Hello class, my name is Tyler Mullen and I will be your guest speaker for today. Now, I am aware that currently all of you are learning about the basics of Flash game programming right now. That is awesome. Uh, and I also know that today you're learning about how to draw and make graphics using Flash. And in order to understand this, you also have to understand the technical aspects of it. The thing about computer graphics is they have to be drawn faster than the processor itself. It has to be drawn faster than humanly possible, and it has to adjust the image about 60 times in a single second. How does it do that? Well, that's a piece of hardware called the graphics card. Now, many, if not all of you, know what a graphics card is. But how many of you know how it actually works? Well, the first step it has to do is it has to take all those ones and zeros from the processor at the beginning, and the processor will send that information to the graphics card in order to come up with an image for it. It takes that information and forms it into this matrix called a bitmap. So that way it can form it can form pixels, or the smallest unit of measurement for image making, or and then it makes triangles, which are the basis of polygons for 3D objects. So it sends it through the PCI connector, which I'll go back to PCIe connector. I'm sorry, that's the first one I said is an outdated model. And I'll get back to that later. Now, the most essential part of the graphics card is called the GPU, or the graphics processor unit, and it is responsible for making all the calculations involved with that. What colors the pixels are going to be, the dimensions and the matrices and vectors for it, and it has to do this incredibly fast. Like unbelievably. So then there is the heatsink on top of it, which is a fan on top of it to prevent it from overheating. I'm sure all of you have noticed that when you use your computer and it uses so much of its power, that the fan will get louder and louder. So it then takes that and sends it to the video RAM, or the graphics card's memory. Now the video RAM is responsible for taking that information and stacking it in a list for the video card to remember, and make it into something that the graphics card can process once it sends the information back to the monitor. Now, there's two factors in determining how effective the video RAM is. First, there is how much of it, which determines the length of how many image adjustments it can make at once, and then there's what type of RAM it is that determines how fast it does this. And then there's also other important functions between the two, such as what I mentioned with the adjusting the images earlier, which is called rasterization, which also changes light and angles and textures. And then there's another one is anti-aliasing, which involves smoothing out the edges on 3D objects. And then, back to the PCI connector, like I originally mentioned. There's two main functions of it. The first is to connect the graphics card to the motherboard, which is a pretty essential function, and the other one is to enhance the clock speed and the graphical capabilities. So it takes so it's not only responsible for giving the CPU's instructions to the graphics card on what information it needs to make. It also sends the graphics card's information over to the monitor. And it does. There's another port on there, so there's one to connect it, and then the monitor that's actually a different port. That will be different for CRT and CRE, and then it displays them in the form of pixels on your monitor. So basically, in summary, the processor takes a set of information on how to create the images. It sends it to the graphics card. It processes it. It takes the default image and adjusts for changes. And then the PCIe card sends it to the monitor to be read back in a way the user can comprehend. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed my speech.